Hello, this is Matt Wynn-Jones from Counterparts Technology and the Chair of the AIIA in New South Wales. Today I'm talking with Rupert Taylor-Price, the CEO of VaultCloud, and we have a couple of questions. So welcome, hello and welcome.
Thanks very much.
We wanted to just find out a little bit about your background, I guess, and just wanted to know what your first job was and if it still exists.
Yeah, so I think it's probably worth talking through maybe the first couple. The first one I worked in a cinema. I think it still exists.
Yep.
I think it's pretty much the same job as it was back then, and I don't think there's been too much innovation or change. But then I think the second job, or one of the later jobs, or the first big job I had, which was in a not-for-profit called COAC, where we built IT systems for that business, and that was all built off of open source technology. And whilst open source was pretty strong and big back then, I mean, it's a whole new world now. The ability to build amazing new systems in days instead of months has really sped up and really transformed that industry. So that job definitely still exists and is thriving.
Yeah.
So,
Did both of those meet your expectations, both of those jobs?
I don't know what my expectations were for the first one. I think I was just trying to get through uni at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good fun job.
Yeah.
And then the second one was a mind-blowing job of challenge. We were working with a lot of Indigenous communities and government programs and social programs, and I was pretty young back then, so to even try and get my head across the complexity of these government-funded programs was just mind-blowing.
You mentioned you were at uni at the time. How skills development and education sort of shaped your professional career?
Yeah, so I studied physics, specialised in medical physics. I have not used any of that directly in any of my roles. But I think the ability to learn something in such a disciplined way, and I've always had that detailed sort of desire to understand how the world works. And so I think by analysing and understanding and taking a scientific approach to problems, I think it's put me in good stead through the rest of my career.
Okay. So along that journey you would have picked up some heroes. Who are your sort of local heroes and who are your sort of global heroes?
Yeah, so when we first started my first business, which is Hivtech, still running today, we were actually literally in the building next to the Atlassian guys. And I can just remember watching that journey. So they founded their business about the same time as ours, but the rate of growth that they went through was just phenomenal. Yeah. And I just remember every week we'd go into the office and get out in the pub with them after work, and the team was just growing and growing and growing. And then they opened up an international office, and I just couldn't believe the rate at which that grew. And I think one of the most shameful things is, we were probably a late Atlassian adopter because they were our neighbour. We just thought, how good could their software really be? They're just the guys next door. And I think Australia sort of suffers that same problem in general. I think that we have this view that if it's Australian technology, it may not be as good. Yeah. And what I've seen is a lot of these companies like Atlassian that I've worked closely with over the years, is they often go and get their success overseas and then come back into Australia, which is a terrible problem for Australian innovation and technology.
Yeah. Sure. Just on that innovation and technology, what do you see as the leading technology innovation in the last 10 years that's really impacted your life?
Oh, I mean, so VaultCloud obviously hosts cloud infrastructure. We run clouds predominantly for government and critical infrastructure, so generally highly sensitive areas. So I mean, again, this was an area at many stages, especially with OpenStack, which is an open source platform. The rate of innovation and change in that was, to be honest, it was hard to keep up with. I think there was 10,000 projects within OpenStack at one point. So even just getting across the concepts of what everyone was trying to do in the innovation, and that was phenomenal. And so I mean, that's really enabled in our area of government. We've seen projects go from multi-years to stand something up down to days, weeks, hours, depending on the project. And that rate of innovation and change, it used to be the bottleneck for government, and now of course it's not, and there's now of course other bottlenecks. But that really, I think, for the next 10 years, if the government really does continue to adopt it fully, will have an enormous impact on citizens' lives and what government can achieve.
Very good. What do you see as the opportunity ahead for you specifically? I know you've had some great success today. What's next? What do you see on the roadmap for you?
Yeah, so I think we're really, I guess, in the midst of developing, executing our business plan. So we're really just trying to scale out in government and critical infrastructure at the moment. So we've partnered with a number of both local and multinational organisations to get that breadth of services onto our platform. Obviously really focused around developing IP and security, sovereignty, privacy. And and so we put masses of R&D effort into that, and all of that R&D is now done in the past. So it's really around commercialising and getting all of those support and systems and service aspects to the business right now. So that's been our focus for the last sort of year and probably the next 2 years going forward before we go into the next phase of business.
Busy times ahead, I guess. I want to talk about diversity, both in your organisation and across the industry. It's something that we've struggled with, I think, diversity in our industry. What do you see as diversity, and what impact can you have on changing or getting the diversity mix right?
Yeah, so I think, again, coming back specifically to the work we do in government, we have a real diversity challenge. And that's because one of the requirements of a lot of our staff is that they have security clearances. Mm-hmm. So that means they have to be Australian citizens, they have to pass certain background checks, they have to, at the highest security levels, even with sort of psychometric testing and that sort of stuff, conform to a certain view of the world. And that, of course, filters out a lot of the diversity. So this is something we've really struggled with as a business, that the pool of people we can recruit from has less diversity. Yeah. So, I mean, what we're trying to do there is look at diversity in a bit of a different way. So rather than looking at it as a geographical or gender or something like that, we've really tried to drive down diversity of thought and what people's backgrounds are and what they've done. And so I think being a private company, even though we're recruiting from that very specific talent pool, by being a private company, I would say that we're probably attracting the most diverse 10% of that pool, because people are more interested in an innovative company like ours. Mm-hmm. So driving that level of diversity has been really important. And so some of the practical ways that we've done that is, and this is for me personally, not just the business, it's not that we would favour or provide a leg up to a certain cohort of people. So if we were to take, say, gender diversity as an example, we don't have say for instance, a lower standard if we were to hire a female developer or a female engineer or something like that. But what we will do is put them to the front of the pack. We'll assess them first, because we want, when you're looking at candidates, sometimes they go off the market. Trying to just seize that opportunity to get that diversity into the business as quickly as possible, whilst maintaining that same sort of level of standards and expectations. And it's a fair and equal system, but whilst prioritising diversity where we can.
We both sit on the New South Wales AIIA Council, and we have a responsibility to the industry as well, and we're trying to sort of broaden the diversity approach there. Any suggestions or ideas around a broader industry approach, how we can make it more diverse?
Yeah, so I think, as you know, one of the things I'm trying to do on the council at the moment is really create a space for Australian organisations within the AIIA, which of course represents a broad church of people, both large multinationals that own Australian entities, and then Australian entities, and then all the way down to SMEs and startups and people at the incubation stage. And so one of the areas I've been trying to focus on in the council is how do we get an understanding of what the policy issues are and the challenges for not just Australian SMEs, but even larger Australian content organisations who are often impacted by the same issues that multinationals are impacted by, but in very different ways, just due to the fact that they are subject to this legal jurisdiction and they're looking at a global problem.
What's drawn you to the AIIA, and how do you think you can make your greatest contribution?
Yes, so I mean the AIIA for me is it's an amazing collection of quite diverse businesses within the IT sector. So even just that community, meeting with people, talking to people, understanding what's going on in the sector, both whether that be in government or in the commercial sector, being exposed to the innovation. You look at the AIIA Awards and things like that, and you just see this enormous diversity from school kids building these projects.
Great
that, you see. We were just at the AIIA Awards the other day. You see these amazing things being built at such a small scale, all the way to major commercialisation across the board. So that to be exposed to that and understand what's going on in the market and to have that informed view is very valuable. But then I also think as well, the AIIA has got a very important role to play in helping government understand industry issues and shaping policy that takes into account the needs of innovation and technology within Australia, because a lot of government policy can be written very strongly from one point of view, and I think that by having a voice that goes into government and provides a clear view of what the Australian information industry needs, which may be, in some ways not necessarily contradicting what law enforcement or some other area needs, but finds a way or a solution that sort of does the best for all parties involved. And so for me, that's a really critical thing that AIIA does and needs to do further.
Yeah, very good. Now, you're still a young fella, but if you were to talk to your 15-year-old self, what would that conversation be?
Ooh, so I think that's a hard one because I've started a number of businesses, and through that period, I've learned so much. But the truth was, if I could learn what I knew in a book, then there'd be a lot of people doing what I'm doing at this point, right? So a lot of what I know is through learned experiences, but I almost feel like it's my lived experience. It's being sat in the seat, having to make that decision yourself. Because I've always found it's very easy to make, this person should have done that. That's always really easy to do, and it's very easy to provide advice to someone else. But often when you're sat in the seat as a CEO and you've got to make that decision and execute it yourself, it's often not as easy as it appears from the outside.
Yeah. Tell me, what's the most pivotal moment that changed your professional career?
I did not do very well at school in earlier years. I was bottom of every class, from science to English. And in hindsight, looking back, I was very bored and frustrated. Like the education system probably wasn't custom designed for the way my mind worked. And so there was this one teacher, Mr. Farrow, who when it was when we sort of talked and stuff, he said, "Look, I don't understand how you can be in the bottom of the bottom class. You're clearly so bright." And so in when I went to school, we had sort of different sort of tiers or streams of class. And so, for instance, in science, they would combine all the sciences together at the bottom, but at the top you'd learn biology, chemistry, physics, and other areas separately. And so separate sciences was sort of the highest level. So he didn't just put me at one class, he went straight from the bottom of the very bottom class, with almost complete failing test results, to the very top class. And that was really the thing that turned my life around, because then my maths teacher said, "How can you be in the top for science but you're in the bottom for maths? This isn't right."
Yeah.
So moved me up there, and I got moved up progressively around the age of sort of 14, 15 to all the top classes. And I cannot imagine the different life I'd had. So I ended up, graduating from one of the world's top universities with physics, specialising in medical physics. And you just look at that path, and that one point where one person believed in me, put their reputation on the line to back me. Because you think that the earlier a change in path happens, the more profound it will be on your life.
All right, well, Rupert, it's been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations,
Yeah,
and thank you very much for joining us. So that's a wrap there. If you need any more information, please go to aiia.com.au and you can join in the conversation there.